This week, the Clarets get new owners. This is the Nona Never podcast. Hello and welcome to the Nona Never podcast. Now, have you ever wondered when you're listening to the shows how we come up with the topics of conversation, whether it's scripted, how we get to talk about the things that we want to talk about? Have you ever wondered what happens behind the scenes? Well, it's generally speaking quite chaotic. So this week, because we haven't really got an awful lot of football to talk about, we decided to let you in and eavesdrop on a call between all of the Nona Never team where we talked about the new owners joining the club. The Clarets, of course, have been taken over by an arm of ALK Capital, and we have a new chairman, Alan Pace, who is saying all the right things in his first couple of weeks in charge. So grab a brew, sit down and listen to what happened when Nona Never sat down for a chat.
Hello.
Hi, George.
Hi, Natalie, are you alright?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. This is coming as a welcome relief from essay writing.
I know, I haven't finished work, but I've just taken a break from work as well to record some sounds.
Yeah, this is going to be a nice welcome break, definitely. You see, Alan Pace was tweeting again today.
You what, sorry?
Alan Pace was tweeting again today. He replied to, Ryan Merton. He tweeted him about the health, the mental health stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he replied to him just earlier before saying, something along the lines of, Burnley in the communities. I know Burnley in the community's done amazing work on this and will continue to look at it and stuff.
Oh, wow. He's doing well. Yeah, it's been quite. I mean, it's going to get massively inundated, isn't it? But did you see? As well? Hi, Dave. I don't know if Dave.
Hello.
Hi. Are you okay?
I'm well, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Me and George were just talking about Alan Pace and his presence on Twitter and some of the things that he's talking about as well. Oh, we've got Tom as well. Look at this. All the boys are joining. Hi, Tom.
How's it going? All right?
Yeah, we're all right. George and I were just having a chat, but I'm going to hold back until everybody else is. Is Rich joining us as well?
I think so.
Good.
It feels like I've walked in on a preview show here. I feel like I'm intruding on Dave and Natalie.
Well, Tom joined us last week in the preview show. I've got to say, it was really weird. It was dead weird just not having me, and I didn't get away with half the stuff that I usually get away with when it's just Dave. I had to be on my best behaviour because we had a guest. Tom was on, and then a couple of shows before that we had Bennett Howarth as well, who's our rating fantasy football on as well. So yeah, normally Dave. Most of the time, Dave just sighs and just ignores me, though. To be fair.
Apparently, I'm nearing the bottom of the fantasy football league, and I'm not surprised in the slightest.
Oh, you can't be any further down than I am. Oh my god. I think, am I still in the relegation zone, Dave? I can't even remember.
Well, it depends what you define as the relegation zone. I'm thinking it's something like the bottom 10 or so. So yeah, I think so.
No, that's not bad. Like, bottom 3, obs.
You can't relegate 3 from a league of 241.
No, that sounds fair to me. Just relegate the
my league, my rules.
Yeah.
It is.
I'm the admin.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. To be fair, you probably could relegate me out of the fantasy football league, and notice. Nobody would notice because I'm really rubbish. Really rubbish. Right, I think we'll wait for Tom. Tom. Rich will join us whenever he wants to. But yeah, chaps, we've got new owners. This is well exciting. Tom, even you must be like delighted now. I know you were cautious about all of this.
I'm not as excited as you lot, I don't think, but it's I suppose the old Chinese curse, isn't it? Me, you live in interesting times, so I'm a little bit wary because of that. But yeah, I mean, it's something new, isn't it? We've not had a new manager or new owners or anything like that for a long time. So yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. It'll be interesting. That's definitely the word.
Have any of you guys seen the video of Robert Smith of The Cure when he gets that the award and she's asking, "Oh, how excited are you?" And Robert Smith just goes, "Well, obviously not as excited as you." That is exactly what I just pictured with Tom to Natalie.
I know. We've all been like children, haven't we, in our WhatsApp group? We've all been like, oh my God, like completely fanboying, fangirling over our new chairman as well. And Tom's just like, nah, we'll see how it goes. I think Tom's been definitely our keeping our feet on the ground. Did everybody see his first interview on Clarets Player?
Yes, yeah. Well, I've seen most of it. Yeah, it came across really well, I thought, in terms of his ideas. But obviously, the challenge is going to be to put those ideas into action. So I think I'm kind of with Tom. It's kind of initial excitement, but we need to see them deliver on that and have progress going forward. So we'll obviously wish them all the best, and hopefully we can move forward together.
Yeah, it does. Feels kind of weird not having Burnley guys in charge, doesn't it? I think. I know that's what people are a bit worried about. And when he starts talking as well, and he is massively American, like that's the weirdest thing. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad he's not called it soccer yet. He's avoided that pitfall so far.
Oh yeah, can you imagine? I've had so many of my friends at work who've been like taking the mickey with it. Was it the Budweiser advert that did that added time multi-ball? I think this is a bit of a blur. George, you're probably well too young to remember this, but
yeah, it's gone over my head already. I'm not going to lie.
It's very hard work having George. Can we just kick George off the team? It makes me feel really old every time he's on.
George is barely old enough to drink.
Well, we should have like an age limit like the US Senate. I'm not allowed on to like 30. That seems fine.
George is the new Adam Howarth. The original Team Known and Ever was set up with the boys, and young Adam Howarth was, God, he must have been similar age to you, George, when you first sort of started on Twitter around like 15 times. Like when he first went to university, I was just like, that really destroyed me. And now we've got George at university as well. It's horrendous. So you're the new Adam Howarth. Does anybody want to pick up on any of the points that George? Do you want to start actually? Because you did a thread, didn't you, on that? What was it? That Clarets Player interview. Did you not do a Twitter thread? I'm trying to find it now. This is.
I'm doing the exact same as you.
What did you do?
I'm just scrolling through my thousands of tweets trying to find for this exact one. It's a real struggle.
Yeah, it's a nice thread. Before you do that, Tom, what have you made of his social media presence so far? He's been proper active on Twitter, hasn't
he? Yeah, I'm not a fan of owners and that being on Twitter in general, to be honest. I think it's probably going to cause more problems. Tom. I prefer the Daesh method of just keep everything off social media, because it will just, at some point, it's going to cause a problem. That's my prediction. I remember that Fulham chairman tweeting all that stuff about, we haven't signed this one, we haven't signed that one. That was just cringe. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, I think he's coming across very well. Like I thought the same as you. I thought his interview hit all the right notes. Seems like a nice chap. And it's nice to have him on there. He's engaging with fans, blah, blah, blah. But that'll all end in tears, I think. I prefer that he starts off in a blaze of glory, as he has done, and then perhaps just gradually, incrementally reduces his social media presence until it's almost unnoticeable. That's what I prefer. I don't think any good can come of him being on social media, really. But again, maybe I'm just a cynic.
Tom, you're making me uncomfortable here. Like, we're all like, I think that Tom's definitely the check and balance of us all, isn't he? We're all like going uberly excited. Rich, you made it. Hi.
Yeah, good. It's always difficult. Are we okay hearing me?
Yeah,
in the fridge.
Yes, definitely.
I'm supposed to be doing online lessons with students, and I can't even get Zencaster on. This is why teachers shouldn't administer the vaccine in schools when you've got idiots like me.
Oh my God! What are you doing?
I feel like it's going to die accountable.
It feels like we've got a rave situation going on. Rich, you're going to have to put yourself on mute.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but it's like it's like a proper like you're talking to a rave.
I think I might have to leave it tonight then, because I'm just struggling. If it's going to be like this, there's no other way of me fixing it.
It's getting better as you speak.
Yeah, it is.
It was very funny at the start.
Can you hear me? Jesus Christ, yes, Rich, we can. Too much.
No, I got to my stepdad's, but I'm not doing it because of this COVID situation. So
Oh, bless you. Oh, bless you. Well, let's stay on just in case. But you might have to. We might have to kick you off if it's going to be difficult. I don't really know how our recording software works, though, actually, because maybe I think it might probably picks up your voice fine, so we might be all right. But we'll see how that goes. George, I found that thread, by the way, that we were talking about earlier on about all the. Oh, I've just lost it again. Damn it!
Oh no, I found it. I had found it.
Oh, good. What were the key points that came out then of his first interview? What do we think?
Well, I think one of the before he went on to talk all about the club and what he's going to do, etc. One of the main points was he's moved into the local area, and I saw in an article he's living near Clitheroe. So obviously that's quite a big thing because you expect maybe an American owner might stay in the States and sort of run it from afar. But it seems as though he wants to be hands on. He said something like 80% of the time he'll be living here, and then the rest is in New York, I think, and London. So and he said he'd already spotted things like walking around the club that he was like, yeah, that needs to change, which he wouldn't have been able to do if he was like a distant owner in the States. So yeah, definitely good that he's living in the area and making himself part of the community.
Yeah, I think Dave and I talked about this on the previous show, didn't we, Dave? We were talking about the idea that when you lose control of local business owners and the fans of the club, do you lose your identity? Do you lose that very heart of the football club? And it just doesn't feel that way for me. I feel like he's really embraced. It feels like he's done his homework. He feels like he knows exactly the club inside out, don't you think?
It's interesting as well, I think, that he's obviously the previous chairman, Mike Garlick, and also John B have stayed on as directors as well. And he touched on that in the interview, saying that it would be probably foolish to just go in and expect to know everything. Having two people in there who've seen what been involved for the last 10 years or more, they can obviously advise. Obviously, they're doing it in a different role to what they were previously, but I think there's an element of continuity there, and I think that's a wise move, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. It's a bit of a funny one, really. I wonder how Mike Garlick's going to handle the transition, because obviously he's been used to calling the shots for a long time, and I wonder if there'll be any clashes. I'd love to be a fly in that boardroom. Can you imagine the first board meeting? It'd be awesome. It would. Oh, hang on. Have we lost Rich? I think we might have lost Rich. Are you still there, Rich? Oh no, I think we've lost him.
I think he's ranting and raving to someone in the background.
Well, he'll come back on if he wants to say it. He'll come on.
He's
shout
muted it now.
Yeah, 100 decibels and run in.
I think.
Yeah, go on.
It was quite interesting. He dropped in the interview. Pace dropped a little bit of I thought it was a bit of a cheeky line when he said something along the likes of, a big difference now is that the manager knows he has my full support, whereas in the past he's had to often guess about this. Sort of hinting at that, whether the strained relationship between Garlick and Dyche, and Garlick not supporting Dyche. I thought that was quite an interesting little tidbit that could easily have been missed from the interview.
To be honest, Judge, I think you've misinterpreted that, because I saw your Twitter thread before before I'd seen the interview, and I thought, oh, here we go. But the way when he said it came across to me like he was saying, so now I know that the manager now knows he has my full support, where previously he'd have had to guess. What he's saying is, before Dyche has actually spoke to Pace, he doesn't necessarily know what Pace thinks about him. I think that's the point he was trying to make. I don't think he was, because I thought the same. I thought, because I thought that's a bit chippy, because he doesn't come across like that, does he? He come across as very all-American, white picket fence and all that. Yeah, I didn't think he'd be having a little dig at Garlick, especially if he's staying about on the board. And yeah, I think that's what he meant. I think he just meant he hasn't had a chance to speak to Dyche, so Dyche isn't going to 100% know what Pace is thinking until he actually speaks to him.
Yeah. So rather than Dyche having to guess the unknown of, oh my God, does the board want me? Because of course Dyche has been here before, of course, didn't he? When the Watford takeover came out, what happened was the new owners sacked him, like within a couple of days of taking over, didn't they? And who did they put in charge, Dave?
Zola.
Who did they put in charge?
I've lost track. They've had about 14 managers.
Yeah, it was Zola. Yeah, it was Zola. So of course Dyche has been there before, and if he's been in that comment therefore makes sense. And if he's then been worried about oh God, are they going to like me? Am I in their plans, or am I just going to get replaced by somebody else that they bring in? And yeah, I think that probably makes sense. I think, just going back to what you were saying about, and I do wonder whether there is a communication shift that does need to be done, because I've had quite a lot of my Southampton friends text me today about this furore that is caused with Southampton fans criticising their youth setup. Did you all see that? It's been
Oh, that was
reported that he
funny.
left
That
Athletic.
was funny. He said something like, "Yeah, 5 years ago, Southampton are a club we've aimed for, and their academy was, amazing. And then up until 5 years ago, and since then, something like it's all gone wrong, or something like that."
Yeah, it's been really. I mean, and then the Athletic. Apparently, Southampton fans are going mad, and the Athletic have now done an article today on it. It's about beef already with Southampton fans. So it's just that, and it's what Tom was just saying. And I do wonder whether it's just the American way of that blunt and directness that isn't just quite at odds with what we're like as British people. We are quite, the stiff upper lip, and we're a little bit more reserved, aren't we? And not just that, in the Northwest as well, particularly in Burnley, we're not that blunt. So I do wonder whether it's going to have to rein it in a bit.
Well, I think it was funny. He said, short-term ambition, stay up and do well in the transfer window. Long-term ambition is to become Britain's favourite underdog club, and there is absolutely no chance. People already hate us enough with the style of football we play, etc., etc. I think he's going to be highly disappointed when all the Leeds fans aren't supporting us when they don't play us.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. What do we think then about what was next on my list? I was going to talk about. I can't think from that interview. Transfers. Then I think it's going to be the big one, isn't it? I think that's the thing that ridiculously a lot of Burnley fans are essentially going to be giving a very quick and very short term. What's the word I'm looking for? Analysis, maybe conclusion. They're basically going to be assessing whether these owners are going to be very good with who we sign in January, aren't we?
Yeah, for me, I think that's like an opportunity for a quick win in terms of PR. Obviously, the biggest problem that fans have had with the board in the last few years is that the money's not being spent. And obviously, this transfer window is the worst of a lot of the one just gone, I should say. £1 million spent is ridiculous for a Premier League club. So I don't think anyone's expecting miracles. And I think he set the expectation fairly, so we can't just come in and suddenly flip the whole scouting network, etc., around overnight. But what we need at the minute is 2 or 3 decent quality additions. It's not going to cost the earth. It's not going to break the bank. It's not as if we spent anything in the summer. So all you've got to do is go out there, sign 2 or 3 decent players that the fans can get excited about. Quick win straight away. Already people are saying, I remember Garlic only spent £1 million in the last window, and the new guys will come and they've spent 20 times that. Whatever. Easy. I'd be rubbing my hands together if I was pacing, especially now there seems to be a bit more communication between him and Dyche. Maybe they'll be able to get things over the line a little bit quicker as well. So I think if I was the owner, I'd be looking at that as a good opportunity.
So from your perspective then, Tom, because obviously you were the one that's been more cautiously optimistic than the rest of us who have gone ridiculously hyperbole and gone giddy kids over this appointment. And we've all been completely seduced by smooth-talking, suit-wearing new chairman who's fancy and everything. You're the one that's keeping all of our feet on the ground. What would it take for you to be happy with what he brings in January? Like, what's the minimum that you would expect?
I don't think we need necessarily anything for the first team in this window, because it is I think Dyche just said today, it is a difficult window. And that, I don't think we're crying out desperate. Maybe if it had been a few weeks ago and we were still in the bottom 3, would be desperate for 1 or 2 to go straight into the first team. No, I think the first 11's fairly settled. I don't think we need major surgery to the first 11. What we do need is a bit of squad depth, and we all know where the positions we need depth are: out wide, full-back, centre-half. So if we can get just, a Brownhill type, say, so someone who can not necessarily step straight into the team now, but will be ready if called upon, and in 6, 12, 18 months' time is ready to step into the first team, similar to what we did with Pope and Taylor as well. That's the kind of profile of player that I'd like us to be looking at for the wings and for right back and centre half as well. I'm sure we've got the targets. I've spoke about Worrell before at Forest. Maybe we'll go back in for him now. Maybe there'll be a bit more flexibility in the budget. Someone like that, 2 or 3 like that, I'd be happy with that. I'm sure the majority of fans will be as well. And as I say, I think the opportunity is there to go and make a couple of signings of that kind of ilk. So I don't think anyone's expecting miracles. No one wants Mbappe in the next window, but spend 15, 20 million quid. Let's get 2 or 3 decent players with resale value and potential, and I'm sure that's not beyond the realms of possibility at all.
God, Tom, the voice of reason. I'm not sure I was. I feel like I feel not deflated as such, but I was a bit like, bring in 20 players, strengthen the first team. It feels a bit.
Yeah, I think
And
this
you're
window's
probably
going to
right.
be disappointing. Like, not. I feel like you've got to really try hard to get a sensible head on, like Tom, and think, it's a long-term process. Well, and at the same time, obviously, sometimes you think takeover, we're going to get this money, and we're going to spend, we're going to sign a couple of players. But I think Dyche put a dampener on it today and sort of brought me crashing back down to earth when he was like, January's tough with or without, money. And Richard said before, like, no team's made a signing to improve the first team yet this January transfer window. It just doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, can everybody hear me better now? Hopefully.
Yeah.
Much
Yes,
better. Much better.
hello.
So no, I've just been listening in the background. I think Tom kind of always is the voice of reason, isn't he, on the podcast? But I think 90% of it I agree with, but I actually think we desperately need a winger, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Right now, as in for tomorrow, we've got Dwight's injured. You don't, in Dyche's terms, how long's that going to be? He said today that he's only training on the grass, not with the first team, so that's a worry. We've got Gunmansson, who's kind of, he said he's fit for this weekend, but he can break down any moment. And Brady, obviously has been really good recently, but we're still massively short in that position. And we're not just short injuries wise, we're also short with the type of winger that we've got. So I'd say all of those wingers are quite similar. They're all quite technically good, put good balls into the box, pretty tidy in possession. I think we're crying out in this team for some pace. I'd love us to sign a winger who, when he, either can beat his fullback one-on-one, or when we're looking to counter attack, give it to somebody who can go with pace. I know Dan James has been mentioned on loan for the rest of the season, and I think he'd be a great signing. I think he looks like a young lad he's desperate to play. Seems like he's got a good attitude. So yeah, from what Dyche was saying today, just echoing George, it put me down to earth a little bit. And I think that sums up Dyche. I think even if there is loads of money, I think he's still very stubborn with who he wants, and he doesn't want a massive squad. But I think it is crucial we do sign 1, 2 players in this window, because I think if we don't sign anybody at all, I think it'll just bring everybody crashing down to earth. And I think that's when, even though it might not be his fault, I think that's where, Alan Pace might come a little bit under pressure. But it's still early days. No one's signed anyone yet. But I think United's kind of had a pre-contract agreement with a player from Atalanta. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting window to see how it pans out. But if we do sign someone for kind of other than an absolute fifth choice midfielder from Brighton, I think it'll be quite exciting. Everybody's loving Stevens now because he's come on for 10 minutes and passed the ball sideways. Still not having it.
We're not going to warm you up to Dale Stevens, are we?
No, but you know what I mean. I just come in, but I listen. I'm still excited by it, but it's still very early doors, isn't it? My excitement has gone a little bit last week. It was like my Christmas day when Paige come in. But I think the more you've listened to him and the more you've listened to Dyche, it's definitely, going to be, as they keep saying, an evolution rather than a revolution, which I don't mind really.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you, and I don't think any of us want to see things happen overnight. That's not really the way that we've ever done it, is it? And also, the foundations of our club have been built on doing things slowly and properly. And I think I can't remember who it was, but one of you put something in the thread earlier on about when we were off before we got on the call, talking about, you'd almost be worried if a big massive signing came in for loads of money, because it felt like a bit panic buying, a bit of a quick fix hit. But I do definitely agree with Rich, and I probably sit in between Tom and Rich with this one, because I agree with what Tom was saying. A lot of the times it's strength in depth, and it's also bringing in those players who are going to take over when some of our bigger stars have to move on clubs or just fall off the pace a little bit. You want to have them ready to slot in. But Rich is absolutely right. We've got to get at least one winger in who is probably will end up coming into the first team this season, because we can't carry on. You know, we've heard today. I don't know. I haven't listened to it yet, so I'm going off what you guys have said. So somebody after this maybe jump in and give us the headline from Dyche's presser today. But we've now got COVID cases in the squad as well. It's like we just can't afford to keep. It only takes one or two out for us to look half the side than we were before.
Oh yeah, it doesn't look good for the COVID side, because Dyche said there's 2 people have got COVID at the club, which you think, all right, that's not too bad. But then when Dyche explains it and you realise, well, that then means the people they've been in contact with, they've had to sort of assess, and then them players are getting a first test, which they're due the result back soon. But then obviously, because it can take sort of 10, 14 days to show up, they've got to get a second test next week and then wait on the result for that. So he said, we've got 14 players currently, at least, that we can field aside for this weekend. But his words were, they may not be the faces you usually come to expect. And then he said it'll probably affect us for the United game as well. I mean, it's lucky we've got this MK Dons one first, but it'd be a shame if it did, rule out a few key players for the United game.
Does anybody, Dave, you might know this, do we know what the rule or the guidelines are about how many cases you've to have before you're allowed to ask for the game to be postponed?
It's not the number of cases, it's the number of fit players you've got available, and they're saying that it's 14. If you've got 14 recognised senior players, then the game goes ahead. Although that's a little bit odd, because it looks like Derby are having to field a team with basically just under 23s and youth team players. So I'm not sure how that. Perhaps it's different for the FA Cup than it is for the Premier League. What they were saying was, from a Premier League perspective, provided you've got 14 players, the game goes ahead. Now, if you've got a deeper squad, you can probably afford to have more cases. I think in our case, our squad isn't quite as deep. We're going to be affected more if we've got COVID running through the squad. But it's not just a problem with Burnley. I think there were 40 positive cases across the Premier League. Now, that's players and staff. But if you average that across teams, that's an average of 2 per team. And obviously some are going to be a lot higher than others. It's a big issue. And, people are now questioning whether maybe within a week or two, if things do escalate, whether we might have to have a shutdown with the league again, which is a possibility, isn't it?
Do we have 14 players?
I'm just going to ask that very same question.
Have 14 players?
How?
I know.
Where's that cut off, Dave?
We've got about 7 left by the time injuries and COVID.
Lace your boots up, Rich. You're going to be on.
What's
that cut off?
He could have been professional if it wasn't for that ACL I read today. He was on an upwards trajectory and he's never reached that level since.
Would you have been a cricketer or a footballer, Rich?
I was probably better at cricket, to be honest, but I was never. I definitely wouldn't make a living out of any. Well, this season, my first bat, I got a golden duck, so no, that wasn't too good.
What's that? What's a golden duck?
Well, I was out.
Oh, ouch! So, that's not good.
No,
I'm not a cricket person. That's not good. I take it.
No, I was alright. No, I was pretty. No, I was very, very average. Very average. I was like Eric Peters. That's the type of footballer I was.
Not Dale Stevens. You're giving yourself better credit than Dale Stevens.
It's better than him.
I love it. It's brilliant. So, sorry, Dave, where is our cutoff then? So when we're talking about senior, you've got to have 14. Like, where do we have to play under 23s then, or is it? Who is it?
Well, I think in terms of the squad you name, you can name up to 20. Certainly for the Premier League, you can name up to 25 players, and then you have any youth and under 23 and under 21 and youth team players in addition to that. But I think it's kind of the core squad. And I think we didn't quite have the full 25 because we have a lot of our players qualified on the basis of being domestic players. We don't have the same overseas players that a lot of other clubs have. But in terms of the cut-off of numbers, I think we've probably got a deeper squad than we think. I mean, we do have injuries, but we've got players going back. I think Jack Cork's potentially available. Johan Berg Gunnarsson scored a hat-trick in a bounce game behind doors as well. And I think FA Cup-wise, we would have been playing a different side anyway. We probably don't have as much flexibility as we would have had. But I think where Dyche can make changes, he'll be looking to make changes for Saturday's game.
So I'm just looking on the website now at our teams. We've got a first team squad of just 22 players. So you're right, Dave. We didn't get the 25, yeah. But 2 of those are keepers. So we've essentially got 20 that we could play. So if
There'll be
we've
3
got
keepers on there, won't there?
yeah, there's 3 keepers. So obviously
Yeah.
you can't play more than one keeper. You're not going to play one.
No.
Surely they don't expect you to play a keeper in outfield. So we've essentially out of a 22-person squad, we've got 20 that we could pick. Taylor's injured. That's 19. Dwight McNeil's injured. That's 18. Who else is out?
2 COVID cases, and then the
Jay's
people
out.
are
Yeah,
isolating,
Jay's out, so that's
and then the people
17.
isolating.
2
But
people injured, 15.
Yeah.
So
But surely you could just chuck in youngsters, Natalie. Like, surely,
but
like,
that's what I mean. Does the under 23s count?
surely it must do because, yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
otherwise Dyche wouldn't be saying, we can field at least 14 players. Because he did say that. Like, he said it could change, but for now, we should be fine.
Oh, what a palaver! I suppose it was
There's no
inevitable.
chance. You're not telling me that City had less than 14 players when their match got cancelled. It reeks that.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely
true.
reeks.
They've got a massive squad. How have
They
they
could
only
field 3 teams.
I think the
Fulham
issue with
got a
that
big
one was the
squad too.
timing of it. I think the issue of the Manchester City one was the timing of it, because they weren't sure who was affected in terms of who was in the bubbles. They didn't have time to get the tests done and retested in time to do it. So I think that's why that one got called off.
I'll tell you something. I'm going to do my note if it turns out that Phil Barsley hosted a New Year's Eve party and all of our players got COVID. I'll be going mad. Damn it. So what we were talking about before we got sidetracked with COVID, we were talking about Alan Pace signing people in January. Anything else, George, that he came out from that first Clarets player interview that we need to be thinking about? What else did he say?
Well, just hinted on the transfers, and I know we've probably like dampened everyone's parade a bit by talking about that evolution, not revolution. But he did one of the big like sound bites from the interview was that he said, "I can just guarantee you that Sean will not be frustrated when it comes to the transfer window." And while he said it's not the importance of a massive new checkbook, the importance is on like acting early and just showing manager support, and that's something we've just not done. Remember a few years ago when we sent that email around to other clubs asking for available players on deadline day? So I think we'll notice a big change, not through like, oh, we've now spent 20 million on a player, but just by acting early, we might actually be able to get some signings in that are on the top of Dyche's list rather than waiting for the end and sort of just messing about with it for the entire window.
Yeah. What do we think is going to happen with the scouting network then? Do we think Riggs going to go?
Yes.
No.
Oh, a yes and a no. Who said yes then? Was that you, Rich?
Yeah, I think he'll go. I think he's not going to... He said he's not going to make wholesale changes now, but I can't see why Rig would stay when Pace's main vision and his main company's been kind of this analytical side of it. So surely he's going to bring his own people in to do that. Might give Rig a chance, but listen, I'd be very surprised if Rig was here this time next year.
I don't think I'd realised that Rig was technical director. What the hell is Dave? What is a technical director? I keep seeing these. What do they do?
I think his role is broader than just identifying transfer targets. I think a lot of it is to do with bringing players in through the academy as well. So I think we won't see the fruits of that probably for another maybe 2, 3, 4 years. But some of the players we're bringing in, I guess Josh Benson is an example. There are other players coming in at younger ages who are not 13, 14, but are maybe 18 or 19 coming in from other clubs where they've been released from, identifying them at that stage, getting them in with a view to them going into the squad hopefully in 2, 3 years' time. So I think the technical director role kind of goes across not just the first team transfers in terms of getting players who are going to come into your first team squad, but also bringing players in across the board at all ages, basically.
Well, I thought it was interesting what Dyche said at the press conference today, because he, at the end of the press conference, he talked about, because obviously people focus on all the dialogue between Alan Pace and Sean Dyche, they're the 2 big names, but he made sure to say like this is a group thing. Alan Pace isn't the only new owner of the club, like there's this group. And he said like there's been dialogue between all the important people, and he said like him, Alan Pace, and then he name dropped Neil Hart, obviously CEO of the club, and he specifically said Mike Rigg. So I don't know.
Oh,
I just
really?
think, yeah, he did say like Mike Rigg, Neil Hart, and he said one other who I didn't really recognise the name, but like that just suggests to me that it's not, at least for now anyway. Mike Rigg's definitely going to be involved, but it's going to be interesting to see. We've not really mentioned it so far, but AOK have got the two investments in the two scouting. I think one's an app and one's a scouting thing. But like it sounds a lot more like they are big admirers of the Brentford and sort of Moneyball approach. I think Dave will probably know more about the two companies they're invested in. Puts all the pressure on Dave.
In
No
terms
pressure,
of what in terms of what they're doing, yeah, I mean that's definitely going to be a part of it. But I'm not sure you can do that from day one. So I think it'll be a case of evolving into that model. The challenge with that, to my mind, as well, is that it's all very well saying that yes, we're identifying players who've got potential, who are on upward curve. Who, I mean, again, it comes down to finances because it's certainly in terms of the Brentford model, a lot of what they're doing is getting the players in and then selling them on for a profit in 3, 4, 5 years time, which is a good thing, a good model to have if you can do that and generate funds that way. But you've got to sort of marry that with a Premier League side. It's not as easy to do that, I don't think. It's maybe easier at Championship level than it is at Premier League level because they've got to come in and they've got to get in the team and hit the ground running, which is it's going to be a challenge to do that. But if you pick the right players, then it's going to be a model that works. But it will take time. It's not going to be an instant win, I don't think, on that one.
There'll definitely be a slow transition between, obviously, they're not going to be able to come in and make wholesale changes to the scouting network and that recruitment side of things from day one, especially seeing as they came in at the start of a transfer window. So it'll be interesting to see, like, over time, obviously, whether they transition to that approach of using these apps, etc., like alongside the current network that's there. But they also mentioned the partner club in Europe, which Pace said like this is really important after because of Brexit to have a partner club in Europe, along the sort of lines of, he didn't say this, but it sounded like the likes of Chelsea and I think it's Vitesse that they've got in Europe. And he said it was really important for player development and, maybe for the future of maybe getting players to, what's it called when you've got the license to play in the country, that sort of thing. So the partner club's something we've never really even thought about as Burnley fans before.
Well, we touched on it with America before, didn't we? When Brendan Flood was involved, we kind of had links out there. But I think it's something we can develop more over time. Player Lens is the name of the company they've invested in terms of the player identification. AI Scout is the other one, but I think Player Lens is the one which is looking more in terms of the player identification, the potential, and trying to get players in that way. So it'll be interesting how that pans out. But we're going to be at the front of the queue certainly in terms of being able to use the potential of those businesses.
Oh, are we not getting you excited yet, Tom? I keep, after you dampen my spirits, I'm all excited again now. I'm all giddy.
Well, I'm glad you are. You should be excited about it. Maybe I'm not excited enough. Maybe the fault lies with me. I think it's good to have a long-term strategy. It's interesting what you said about Rigg. I think Dave made the point about we've brought in players like Benson, Goodrich, people like that are more kind of for the under-23 team. And I saw Pace said that he was a big fan of the youth setup, so that makes me wonder if maybe there won't be quite as much drastic changes as we thought. Maybe the way that the youth development's moved in recent years, it's moved in the right direction. We've gone up to Category 1 status. Maybe Pace is actually a bit of the fan of the way we've set that up, and maybe he's a fan of what Rigg's doing and Jonathan Pepper at the academy. That might have been the third name you were thinking about before, George, actually, Jonathan Pepper. And maybe yeah. So if he's kind of happy with all that, maybe we shouldn't expect to see the analytics impact that radically. Maybe it will just enhance the work that's already been done there. So not to dampen your spirits at all, but again, I guess the phrase that's been used is evolution rather than revolution. That's probably a good sign to me.
I like that. I do like that. I think that's a good thing. I think the other thing that I picked up on earlier on today, actually, and this is something that I think Dave and I have talked about loads when we're warming up for the previous show, when we're just chatting off air, is I guess we put it in the umbrella of match day experience. And I know that there's some of the things that fans have approached Pace with on Twitter and other forums is to talk about the mental health concerns of the people and the fans in the town, and particularly linked to the club's sponsorship with gaming companies and betting companies. And he has come out and said, much to John Robertson's delight, who is a known and ever preview show VIP, he's obviously been campaigning to try and distance ourselves from betting sites for ages. And he's actually said as Pace that he's looking at that, and that's something that they feel strongly about and they've got concerns about too. We could be trailblazers, guys, for moving football away from betting.
Going back to your first point, Natalie, kind of before we cover the betting stuff, because it's not, I'll let somebody else kind of go on with that because it's not my area of expertise. I love my match day experience. I think it's
me. So do I.
I don't get what people like. I don't like. I get it, but what do people? Do we want it to be like an NFL game where you've got bloody cheerleaders and fireworks and all that crap going off? Like me, I go in the foundation club. I have a bit of food. I have a couple of pints with my dad. Me aunt, see my family there. We go on the game. I chat to the people I've sat next to for the last 20 odd years. Just get totally immersed in the game. Shout, swear, cheer, cry, whatever it is. And that's part of football. It's like, to me, I look like Turf Moor. There's something pure about it. I think there's the fan zone for people. Don't get me wrong. I went to Brighton early in the season, and it's very last season. It's very fancy. You've got probably more about the stadium, but and obviously people are different, but I don't know what the rest of the people in, but it's the best part of my week. Well, not at the moment, but going and having the match day experience, I don't think there's too much wrong with it, to be honest. That's my opinion.
Maybe that's the question. Maybe that's the thing when anybody comes in and starts looking at how the club moves in the next direction. It might not necessarily be an emphasis on changing what's already there. He may just be asking that question to make sure that people are happy with their match day experience, and if they are, great. Let's not worry about that. Let's park that in the don't need to change anything with that, because I agree with you. Football's changing every single year, and as the Premier League gets bigger and the Championship try and catch up, and the Football League clubs get more and more distance from everything that's going on and the money that's available to them. When you've got these massive super stadiums like the new Spurs stadium, which is brilliant, and I loved my day there.
I didn't.
But the result wasn't great. When we were like 3-0 down after 20 minutes, I was like, I'm going home. But certainly before the game kicked off, it was impressive, but it didn't feel like the football that we know and love. Turf's much better. So maybe that's all it is, Rich. Maybe it's just getting the reassurance.
But I've seen a lot of fans on Twitter kind of say that they want the match day experience improved. You know what? That's absolutely fine, but it's just interesting. I kind of, and that's why I said it. Like, I really enjoy the experience.
Yeah, me too.
Or maybe that's my routine. I suppose everybody has their own routines and people do different things, don't they? But I really enjoy my routine or the experience of the game. So that's just my view on it. I don't know if any, like I said, if George, Tom, and Dave think any different, but
I think there's certainly improvements that can be made if you look at the way the club's set up. Well, when we can remember going to grounds, it's so long ago, isn't it? But in terms of, queuing for a drink on the concourse at half time,
that's true. I just stay up at half time. I don't really go down.
Well, exactly.
Yeah, so.
But I think part of it may well be that, when COVID's out of the way, then better ways of refreshments for fans as a basic point.
I agree
I'm not sure it's necessarily saying about changing the. They've tried it before in the past. We've had Chico at half time, if you remember that one, and dog troops going around. Do you remember
the pie and the pea? Bring back the pie.
Yeah.
I did that, and that was good. I used to enjoy that. The pie and the pea.
God, Jesus Christ! This is taking it a turn. I think I've got to say, actually, I think I agree with Dave. I think refreshments and I guess food offering especially is something that I want to see improved. Now, I tend to go to Turf Chippy, which is just the best chippy in the world, and don't even at me with any claims that it's not. But I think now they've got the fan zone outside, and they've got like the burger van, and they've got a little bit a better food offering, and they've got the proper ale as well in the beer tent. That has improved it. But if you get to the ground late for whatever reason, you've not got time to eat outside. If your only food options are at half time, it's really hard work to either have a pie or a rollover hot dog, which is quite frankly may as well be suitable for vegetarians. It's never seen Never seen meat. So yeah, I agree with that. Maybe it's just little things like that, Rich. Maybe, like you say, we want to keep everything, but just tweaking stuff. Because I think they are going to be looking at the commercial side of it and how we make money. And I do think people go to turf prepared, where they've got the means to, prepared to spend a certain amount of money on the match day experience. You know, I don't always buy a program, but I quite like having something to eat. So, you know, people spend the money on different things. And I think if you give a better like food offering, you might be able to generate better revenue there. I don't know.
I tell you what, the one thing that'll break the camel's back for me, if we raise the program price to more than £3, that's it. I'm out, because that's the one thing that I love about us, that we've always kept it at £3, and I've got a program from every single game I've been to.
Wow.
And when we go down south and it's like £3.50 at Wolves, it does my head in. So as long, you know, Alan Pace, if you're listening, as long as you keep the program price at £3, you've got a very happy Claret right here.
That's assuming the program comes back. They've now gone to digital, and I'm not convinced they'll bring it back. No. I'm not convinced.
I've got to say as well, from an environmental perspective, but if you're looking at your carbon footprint and the environmental impact of match days, all of those programs, most people don't keep them. Like, they just read them and they throw them away, and they're glossy. They are like high quality paper. They're not good for the environment. I think Dave might be right. I think we might have seen the end of that.
You mean they're not in everyone's wardrobe like me?
I've got a few from key games, but not. And I've got a few signed ones, but I've not. I've still got my Wembley programme, obvs. I just found that this is the most Burnley podcast ever. I just find it all of the really important, like, generation-defining changes when they come on turf, and George is just wanting to make sure that the programme doesn't go above £3. Rich wants his match day experience to stay as it is, and everyone's just like, do not mess with our football.
Yeah, but spend millions of pounds, you know?
I just literally want new players, me. I'm not bothered about anything else.
Yeah, I'm just like, I like new players. I'd quite like to. My dad, Daddy B, is really worried about for some reason he's got it into his head that we're going to move from Turf Moor, which it's like, Dad, we're never going to move from Turf Moor. But I would quite like to see some ground development, because I think you can do better things with turf. I think you can redevelop that cricket field stand, and you could do something.
Now's the time to do it.
Definitely. And I think you can do it and still Turf Moor still feel like Turf Moor. I've got to say, actually, I think we talked about this. Dave, did you and I talk about this on a preview show? When I was saying one of the oh no, I know when it was. It was when we were doing the Alistair Campbell special. One of the he was talking about Paul Fletcher and some stories about him being at the club. And one of the things that I felt really sad about with ITV Digital collapsing was that we never got to see his plans for that cricket field stand redevelopment.
It was after that. It was the ITV Digital was a lot before that. It was the global banking crash that caused the problem.
Of course it was. Yeah. I'm getting me ears.
I've still got those plans in the programme in my wardrobe. So if you ever need me to root out and find them, because
it's in the Clarets Chronicles book. There's a section in the back of the Clarets Chronicles book came out to the end of the 2007 season. They had about 3 or 4 pages of the plans in the back of the book, and then obviously the banking crash happened the following year, and all the things that were in the pipeline never happened.
Dave, you tweeted about this earlier, and you got a couple of pushback tweets, didn't you, about stadium renovation? I'd be interested in what everyone wants sort of doing to the stadium, because I think we all agree like capacity is not the real aim to increase the capacity, but obviously the match day experience, I'm with Rich. You know, there's nothing really that I want to see. You know, I don't really want to see cheerleaders brought and fireworks and everything, but maybe the experience also includes stadium improvements. I'm not too sure.
I think there's certainly potential to do something now. I mean, you're in a situation in a good way, in that you've got no pressure. In that, in the past you'd be saying, "Oh, we're going to lose this revenue because we haven't got fans coming into the ground." Now you're in a situation where for the next several months you aren't going to have fans in the ground. Let's face it. And even when you do get fans coming into the ground, it'll be on a staggered basis. So you potentially got the entirety of 2021 to be able to do things to the ground if you want to do it. So, to my mind, it's a case of striking while the iron's hot. And it's not a case of necessarily bumping the capacity up. It's more a case of how you can make improvements. I think the cricket field stand is very outdated. It's possibility of either making improvements there or even replacing it. I mean, it sounds dramatic, but possibly replacing the cricket field stand. And if you did that, you could then have extra capacity for hospitality as well. I think we're in a situation where we don't have a lot of hospitality seats at the club. It's to fans on a day-to-day basis. It doesn't make much odds, I don't think. But certainly from a financial point of view, for new owners coming in, if they can maximise the revenue from the point of view of getting 2, 4, 4, 5, 600 more hospitality seats, it obviously adds to their bottom line and helps the club going forward. It brings in revenue for other things.
We've definitely. I think I agree with you, Dave. Here, I think we've probably done as much as we can do with the cricket field stand, because it did. Obviously, we had the tunnel in the middle, and then it's obviously been renovated since, and the whole bottom of it's been redone in the last few years with the changing rooms, etc. We've pretty much done all we can with it. So, but obviously, you've got the issue of Burnley Cricket Club will never want to move from there, and fair enough. My dad brought up the idea of doing something different to the Bob Lord, and it's not like put another tier on it. Just like you can redo that stand. That could be something to look at.
I thought the cricket club agreed to move when we were first did those proposals. Sorry, I've got my mouth full of Christmas.
That was mooted as a possibility. I think there was a potential financial settlement for them to move. And again, it might be a situation where new owners coming in, they can give impetus to that, and that might happen. But yes, you would need to have some sort of either buy-in from the cricket club where you took an element of that land to do certain developments, or even Burnley Cricket Club move in completely.
Interesting stuff. I don't think there's anything else that we needed to cover, was there? I think we were talking about the... Go on, George.
Well, the underlying thing throughout all of this episode, which we've not actually mentioned, is like the main change is ambition. Like for me, whether it comes in the form of transfers or what have you, the main difference in the change of ownership and everything that Alan Pace has been talking about is the ambition. And just a few things that I picked up from the interview. He said, if our ambition was just to stay up, it'd be like going into the ocean and just trying to avoid drowning, and you won't actually explore the beauties of it. It was a very American metaphor. But then he also said, if we're lucky enough to be here in 20 years' time, which that's brilliant, because it just shows long-term commitment. But he did say, if we want to be here in 20 years' time, I can tell you the ambition will be, and he emphasised, the ambition will be far different from today. So I think just the main underlying thing about all of this is just hopefully we'll modernise the club. And it's brilliant we've got all these traditions and everything, but sometimes we can be stuck in the past, and we'll show a bit of ambition. And I think that's what Alan Pace and his team will definitely bring to the club.
That's what I've been crying out for so long, and and again, everyone's got their opinion, and that's a part of football. But so many people are just like, yeah, but it's a and it still is, and even though it does frustrate me, but it's a good season if we've come 17th. Like last season, we come 10th. But this season, we're probably going to come like 15th, 16th, I think, in the end. So we're going to, regress. Hopefully, from this season, we can start seeing that steady improvement to the club, bringing players into the first team. Hopefully, maybe, going into that European market and keep building and building. And like George said, I thought it was a great way to kind of summarise his what he said so far is he is ambitious to obviously take the club to that next level, and to and something we discussed on the podcast last week, Natalie. I do want us to see us play a little bit better football. Sometimes, even though it's a great feeling when you win, at times it can be difficult to watch. I'd love us to, remember when we had Defoe playing and it was a joy to watch, and we was knocking the ball about a little bit more. Imagine if we got another couple of players like that. It'd be absolutely fantastic. But to kind of...
He's available.
Well, maybe not. Well, they've got Defoe. But you know what I mean? Like, you look at... I watched Southampton, and I know Hassan Utul is a bit of a strange cat, in it, but some of the, obviously from that 9-0, and look at the way they're progressing. They signed the young lad who played in midfield against Liverpool called Diallo, who I think is going to be a really top player. So it'd be nice to kind of see us signing those players. But my favourite quote that he gave was something quite subtle. He said, "What you'll get to know about us is that we under-promise and over-deliver." I thought that was so cheesy. I liked it, but it was really cheesy, wasn't it? So yeah, I think George made a great point there. Let's hopefully, and I know Tom's still very cautiously optimistic, but over the next 2, 5, 10 years, it'll be really interesting to see where the club's at in terms of hopefully competing in the Premier League.
Yeah, I'd love that. I'll tell you what I kind of liked as well from his interview that he was saying. I loved the fact that he highlighted just the bad state, the bad shape that football in the Northwest is in. It suddenly felt like he was going to come in, and I don't know, it just felt like he understood the town and he understood the region, and he was like, he kind of said it's a crying shame that there's so many clubs in the Northwest and there's only really us that are doing well. Everybody else is really struggling. And you think, I do miss it. And as much as it pains me when we get beaten by them, but I miss the derbies and I miss Preston and Blackpool and them down the road. It's like you want to see football back to the Northwest. You want to see everybody back in the top tiers. So I'm not sure. I think we're putting a bit too much pressure on Alan Pace's heads now. It's like you must solve Burnley's problems, you must solve gambling problems, and you must also solve problems in the Northwest in football. So there you go, no pressure. Speaking of, we've lost Tom. I think Tom's disappeared. Last one then, quickly before, because I'm going to go on. I'm going to get some some tea. Talking of ambition, this weekend cup game. Can we please have a cup run? That would be ace.
Just hope we get through this. Just hope we have enough players for this weekend.
Yeah, assuming that we can field a team at the weekend.
Do you know what? I've thought about this. Wouldn't it be our luck that we get to Wembley and we can't go?
Oh no! Don't say that.
Getting to the
Yeah, I
final.
don't want to.
Imagine if there's any year to not have a cup run with everything that's going on. I actually don't mind this year. I know that sounds negative. Imagine getting to Wembley and you wouldn't see a Clarets and blue. How gutted would that be? Sorry, Natalie, to bring a downer on it, but I just can't.
I literally might just cry. You've literally put a stake in my heart. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to go to Wembley and I'm not going to get to see it. Obviously.
Well, that won't happen anyway. We'll get knocked out by the Dons.
Yeah, Dash is... Do you think Alan Pace knew? Do you think Alan Pace did his research on what crappy record Dash has got in cup competitions? It's like he's not a cup manager. He really isn't. I'm sorry.
Can I give you a stat?
Yes.
Stat. Burnley haven't lost a third round tie at Turf Moor since 2008. It's 13 years since we lost a third round tie. Arsenal.
Arsenal, was it?
Arsenal.
Did Stan Varga play centre half for Burnley?
Yes.
He was very bad. He turned slower than Dale Stevens in. He was bad. Stan Varga.
Oh my God. I hope that we've producer Matt sent Alan Pace an email asking him if he wants to come on the podcast, because you know what, if you don't ask you don't get, and we got a wonderfully polite reply back from his media team saying that they would keep in touch, and we've got to appreciate that they've been inundated with requests, which was the most wonderfully polite way of saying, guys, you're at the bottom of the queue. Well, hey, we're in the queue. Doesn't matter where we are in the queue, we're in the queue. And I just hope that this isn't the episode that he decides to listen to see who's going to come on.
He's following us on Twitter. Did you see he followed us on Twitter?
Yes. He's connected with me on LinkedIn, and I think he's with you as well, hasn't he, George?
He's with me too.
Excellent. He's getting in touch. We like him already. We're very easily pleased. It's just massage our ego a little bit, and we'll support you to the hilt. There's nobody going to get excited about this MK Dons game at the weekend before we go.
No,
we weren't excited enough to do a preview show for it. So,
are we doing a preview show, Dave? I've kind of lost that thread. What are we doing?
Well, we were going to discuss fans' memories of FA Cup games. Matt had tweeted out for what fans remember for Burnley's FA Cup third round wins, memorable ones from the past. Is it worth us touching on those now?
Did anybody actually reply?
We got a few, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I replied, so that's one person at least.
Yeah, Tom remembered our win at Derby in 1999. That was the odd one, wasn't it? Because that was the one that Manchester United didn't play. They were playing the World Club Championship, and the third round came early, didn't it? That one went into. Did it go into December? Is that
it was like
right?
Early in December, that game. Yeah. We were still at school, definitely. I remember that.
Yeah.
And then we got beat by Coventry in the next round.
Yeah, 3-0. Didn't go so.
So essentially, I've now got George. Why are you waving at us? What's the matter?
It's because you're not replying to me in the chat, Natalie. I'm
I haven't seen it. Sorry. Can I mention Natalie's paragraph about why the debt is fine? It will put a lot of listeners' minds at ease. I know a lot of old fans are worried. Blah blah blah. No. Essentially. I'm gonna say we're talking about Milton Keynes, and George is just waving at us and his thing like, pick me, come to me. No, go on, George. What were you wanting to talk about very quickly about the takeover?
Well, I was just going to say, because obviously we're all I mean, Tom included, with cautious optimism. We're all really optimistic about this, but we've got to recognise that quite a lot of fans are worried, and it's not a Burnley fan. It's a foreign investor. Why on earth is he interested? And then they've got that the debt that obviously they've taken out a debt or a loan. And I thought the same as them. It was a bit like, oh, I'm a bit worried now. But Natalie, you texted our group chat with a brilliant paragraph, and I was just wondering whether you wanted to sum it up, or I've got it screenshotted here, and it put my mind at ease. So I agree, it put a lot of listeners' minds at ease.
Is that on your bedroom wall too, George?
Yeah, because I still kind of think, oh no, we're getting taken over here. But then I look at that and I'm thinking, oh, it'll all be fine.
He's going to print it out and put it with the ground plans. Just whenever he needs. So if we want to know how George Poole's getting through lockdown, it is. No, I think it was just a very, very quick comment about, I know some fans are concerned about debt. And listen, this is not coming from any level of expertise or any formal financial advice or anything. This is just my opinion. But essentially, deals of this nature very often get financed. It's very unusual for somebody to pay pure cash reserves for certainly the levels of purchase that we've been putting in here. And I think it comes down to changing your mindset about how you feel about debt. And I think one of the comparisons that I gave the guys is that not all debt falls into bad debt. There's responsible debt, which is good debt, and there's irresponsible debt, which is bad debt. So if you think about things like your mortgage, car finance, or interest free, what's it called, sofa purchases and things like that, and things that you can spread the cost out, they are responsible debts and they are good debts because they are inexpensive or they are necessary for your lifestyle. But then you compare them to things like overdrafts and credit cards and short-term loans, the high street lends. They are very expensive and they are very easily manipulated and very easily abused, and they're generally considered bad debt. When you purchase something like this, financial planning is something that is taken into consideration. And even if the new owners had the cash reserves to be able to purchase it purely in cash, debt free, that's not necessarily the most sensible way of structuring the deal. And if they can get funding to do it, spread the cost of that funding in a cheap and cost effective way, they can then keep their cash reserves, which may very well be better spent on emergency funds or basically not wiping out the savings and things like that. So I think I was just talking to the boys and saying, don't just automatically see a loan or debt to purchase this football club as automatically bad or something that we need to worry about. It is done all the time, not just in the football world, but in corporate world in general. People use finance to buy things, and in a lot of cases, it's probably the more sensible way of funding something because it doesn't tie up cash. So that was essentially all that was. So there you go. Thanks.
And now all the listeners' minds are at ease, and everyone is content with the takeover, and the world is a better place.
Please don't send people my way. That was genuinely just my personal view on how I look today. I think it's just I'm lucky in my profession that I see a lot of these, a lot of the ways that finance works, and a lot of I have exposure to how deals are structured. And it's just, I'm not saying this is cast iron, by the way, because I haven't seen the accounts, and it may very well be that they've been, it's an irresponsible lend. I don't know. But I'm saying is that don't automatically assume, because it's very common for finance to be put in place for deals like this. And on that note, let's go, because nobody's getting excited about MK Dons. We've not got 14 players. I've got no idea what I'm supposed to be doing with Dave, but I better go away and read Twitter. But yeah, good chat, guys. We managed to talk about lots of nice things. Bloody hell, we've been on the phone for an hour.
It's flown by.
It has.
Time flies when having fun, doesn't it?
It does. Right, let's go, everyone. Thanks for your time, and we will speak when hopefully we get an MK Dons game on, and hopefully we get United game on, and let's all talk next week after the United game and see if we can put a analysis podcast out. And Dave, I'll speak to you separately about whatever you've told me about previous shows. Grand. All right, guys. Speak soon. Bye.
Speak soon. Bye.
Bye.
So look after yourselves all.
Good evening. Bye bye.
And that's all we have time for this week. I hope you enjoyed that. It was very much an informal round the table to discussion, and I think sometimes it gets the best out of people. Maybe we should do more of these when people feel a bit more relaxed and they can talk about some things that get it off their chest. If you like that format or you want to see more of it, drop us a line at nonanever, or tweet us at nonanever, or drop us an email at podcast@nonanever.net. Or if there's anything else that you'd like us to do differently in 2021, we're always open to suggestions. My thanks as ever go to producer Matt, who has this week had the Herculean task of knitting together the whole team's audios from that call. So hopefully that wasn't too difficult, Matt, but thank you anyway. And thanks to you, the listener, for downloading and listening to that episode. It is very much appreciated. Your support is always appreciated. We would not be here without you, and I say that every single week, and we genuinely mean it. I don't know when we're going to be back in terms of games, with everything that's going on with the COVID positive tests this week and games possibly being pushed back. So keep an eye out on social media and we will push some new episodes to you as we can. In the meantime, stay safe. If anybody's struggling particularly with the new lockdown and is feeling isolated or alone, or just wants to reach out to somebody and have a chat, then the No Nay Never team is always available. You know how to get in touch with us. If you fancy writing us an email and becoming pen pals, we usually always respond. And tweet us and we will interact as ever. So please take care of yourselves in the meantime. This has been the No Nay Never podcast. Until next time.